Alright, so I'm going to be working on the WJ again. I got a tie rod. It's not bad, but last time after I was out wheeling, I was checking everything out, and I noticed one of my tie rod ends, it's got a split in the boot. So I'm going to get that taken care of before it goes bad. Get it taken care of before it becomes a problem. So shouldn't take too long. It's pretty easy. Just got to get the WK pulled out and get the WJ over on this side. Alright, so here's the issue. You can see the boot on this tie rod end right here. It's got a split in it. And tie rod end's not bad yet, but once the boot splits and dirt and grime starts going in there, it's only a matter of time. So just going to get that changed out before it becomes an issue. So I only have to work on this side, but I got both sides jacked up because after I do this, I'm going to check the alignment, and I want both tires off for that. So I'll explain more about that when I get to that. But anyway, that's why I'm jacking both sides up. Alright, so to get these off, most of the time you can just pound right here on the knuckle. Just give it a couple whacks and it'll fall out. If not, they make a tool that'll go in there. The only, the disadvantage with the tool is that a lot of times it'll ruin the boot. In this case, I don't care because I'm not, trying to save it. But anyway, we'll try the hammer first. There you go. Just a few whacks and out it comes on that flat spot. And you can see all the grease that's around here because it's all leaking out of that torn boot. That boot is pretty hit. I mean, like I said, the tie rod still seems pretty good. It's pretty, solid still. It's not loose or anything, but I'd rather replace it before it becomes a problem. Alright, before I take this off, I'm going to measure the distance between the end right here where it goes into the tie rod, like where the threads go into the tie rod, and the center of the post. And hopefully I have that mostly straight, because that'll give me a good starting point. As I said before, I'm going to try and align it after this. And when you do something like this, you probably want to get in alignment, but the closer you can get, the better, because, way back in the day, I would just take these off and get them close enough and drive it around like that, which I'm sure isn't really great for your tires, but if you can't get in alignment right away, you want to get it as close as you can. So I'm going to measure that and then continue. So you don't want to measure the thread length because different tie rods are going to have different threads. But so you want to get it to the center of this post as close as you can. And it is 7 3/4, maybe 1/32 of an inch further. So 7 3/4 sounds good to me. All right, so we get this thing out. There's a nut here on the bottom of this pinch. I don't know what you call it, pinch sleeve, whatever. Got to loosen that up, and then it'll unthread. That should be good. You don't have to take it off completely, just enough to loosen it up so you can rotate that. So there we go. See, I can rotate it now. I'm going to loosen it a little more because it's still kind of hard to rotate. So once that's loose, sometimes you just got to pry this little thing apart a little. fun one. Another thing I've always done, I don't know why, but I count the turns. So that was 3, 4, 5, 29. Reason for that is, again, it's a way of getting the other one in about the same length, but there's no guarantee that the distance from the end here is gonna, I mean, the other tie rod could be longer or shorter, you know, so it's better to measure that distance. And you can see if you forget to measure it beforehand, you know, you can kind of see where it was, so you can even measure it afterwards. So when you get your replacement tie rod end, a lot of times they come without the grease fitting installed. You can see there's just a hole there, but it should come with a grease fitting in this little bag of parts. There's a grease fitting, cotter pin, and a new nut. So definitely make sure to put that in. Because you want grease. You want to be able to grease it. So doesn't require a whole lot of torque. You don't want to torque them down too much and strip it. That's probably good enough. I'll know as soon as I put grease in it. If grease starts coming out here, then I might need to put it down a little more, but that should be good. 1 3/4 right about there. I'm just going to put a little mark on here and see how close I get. That's 29 right there. And check that out. Right where I made my mark. So counting the threads seems to be a good method as well. I'm going to measure that just to make sure. Into that. 3/4. It's a little longer. It's really close though. And I may have moved this around a bit too. So I'm going to call that a good starting point because I'm going to adjust it anyway. And you know, it might just need a little bit more because I think it's pointed up a little too far right now actually. I think it should be closer to that. There we go. That looks pretty darn good to me. I gotta get it in far enough to get it to bite on that nut though. That's gonna be fun. Doesn't feel like I'm hitting. There we go. Just need a little oomph. So those are tapered studs. So as you tighten the nut down, it pulls it up into the taper and gets it nice and tight. You definitely want to get them, there's torque spec, I don't know what it is, I'm going to look it up right now. But you want to get torqued to the right torque spec. So I'm going to look that up. Alright, so I got my torque specs. There's a post on Jeep forum, I think, that it's really awesome, has all the torque specs for the WJ. I'll try and put a link down in the description to this post. I don't know if you can see that, but it says tie rod knuckle nut, 35 foot-pounds, tie rod clamp nuts, 30 foot-pounds. So that's what I'm going to torque them to. I'm going to buzz them on with the air wrench just as quick, but I'm going to put it on the lowest setting because I don't want to over torque it. So anyway, there we go. Now I'm going to put a torque wrench on it. I'm going to put this on there first. See, that's still super loose. Alright, now I'm going to use a torque wrench. Not a lot of torque for 35 foot-pounds, but it doesn't need a lot, it just needs to stay in there. So this castle nut, if you've never done one of these, get a better shot. You can see, maybe, yeah, there you go. There's the hole through there that the cotter pin goes on, and you can see it's not lined up with the castles, and so you always want to go tighter, never go looser. So it actually gets a little bit more than 35 in this case, which is fine. You just want to go just that little bit until you can line it up with the hole and get the cotter pin through. A little bit further. There we go. That should be good. You can see it's lined up now. So now I'm going to go get the cotter pin. Slides right in. No problem. Trying to bend this with my fingers for some unknown reason. And just bend that so it's flat and away from the be in the way of anything, and so it stays in. Doesn't have to be perfect, it just has to hold that pin in. Because that pin, the only purpose of that pin is just to keep this nut from moving around as you're driving it and hitting bumps and everything, you know. Alright, so that is in. Now, I would tighten up this clamp nut again, but I'm going to get it aligned, and I'll show you how I'm going to do that. Alright, so on a solid axle vehicle, like the Jeep WJ, ZJ, XJ, TJ, all the Wranglers, you can do your own driveway alignment, because all there is really to adjust is the toe in. So the way the steering works is you have the track bar, which ties the two wheels together, and then this is the drag link, which goes up to the pitman arm on the steering box, and all the way over here to this knuckle. And so when that pushes, when you turn your wheel, this moves back and forth, pushes this wheel back and forth, and then the tie rod makes sure that the other wheel does the same thing. And so on a solid axle suspension like this, all we really need to worry about after changing the tie rod end is the length of this tie rod. And we want to just make sure that the front wheels aren't pointing out too far or pointing in too far. And so, to check the toe in yourself at home, you can get one of these, they're just alignment plates. These are made by TMR Customs. There's other companies that make them as well. But basically, it's just two pieces of metal of equal length with holes to bolt onto your lug nuts, and then little notches so you can measure between them easily. And so what you do is you bolt one of these onto each wheel, and then you measure the distance between the front side, and then you measure the distance between the rear side, and you're looking for the difference. And what you want is you want the front to be maybe about a 1/16 of an inch further in than the rear, so that your tires are towed in just slightly. And a 1/16 of an inch gives you, I forget what it is. Maybe I'll look it up. 1/16 of an inch gives you however many degrees of toe in, which is about what you want. I wish I had measured this before I took them off, so I knew where I was at, but I didn't think about it, so oh well. That to be about level. Okay. That's really close. So you want those to be about level so that you're measuring the same distance and not measuring, up a hill, because that'll increase your length. So I'm going to put the other side on, and then I'll show you what's next. Alright, so now that I got these bolted on and level on both sides, take your tape measure. I got it over on the other side through here and hooked onto the end. At least that's the plan. We're going to see if I can keep it on there. It is over the end. But we'll see if I can keep it over and hooked on. There we go, I just felt it. And then you measure to anywhere along here, you know. You can measure to this edge or the inside edge or even to here, as long as you do the same thing from both sides. So I'm going to look right here, and I am at 66. Not quite 3/4, it's like a 32nd below 3/4, but 66 3/4 almost. And then you do the same thing on the front, and you see what your difference is. So the front is actually out a little further. Looks like it's at 67 and 32nd, and so that means I need to adjust them in because I want the front to be less than the rear. So I'm towed out slightly right now, and that'll cause your car to wander. So to adjust this, I just need to turn this bar one way or the other, and so I need to loosen these clamps on both sides so I can turn it. And then I also need to loosen the clamp on the steering stabilizer, because that's clamped around here as well. It needs to be able to rotate on that. Maybe if I put it right there. But this is going to move and get closer as I'm going to have to test that and see. But that might be a good spot for that. And that'll help because it's more parallel. They work better if they're parallel. I had it down too far. There's not a whole lot of clearance between all this linkage. So this is going to move closer to the axle as I turn further to the side, because of that arm will rotate, get it. So I got to make sure the back side doesn't hit. So I'll look at that. But anyway, right now I just needed to loosen that so I can turn this. Now, if you live somewhere that has salt and rust, a lot of times this does not want to turn easily. So you may need to put like a pipe wrench or something on it. Ouch. These are sharpish. Oh, there it goes. Alright, so as I turn this, yep, it's going to bring each of these in. So I'm going to turn it. Like a half a turn, and then I'll remeasure. Alright, I'm going to remeasure and see where I'm at. Alright, so that was too far. Now my front is at 66 13/16, and the rear is at 67 1/8. So that was too far. So I got to go back the other way. So that's pretty much what it is. I'm going to keep doing that back and forth until I get it to where I want it.
Many minutes later.
That is so close. I think that might be it. So the front is at 66 7/8. Yeah, but we'll go in 16ths because that's what I'm looking for. So 66 14/16. This is easier too if you have like someone to hold the other side for you. There it is. All right. So now here, and this one is 66 15/16. So now the trick is to tighten these nuts down without turning it anymore. And so to help myself with that, I'm going to make some paint marks so that I know right where I'm at. And that way, if I accidentally turn it, I know how far and how to get back. I also like to make paint marks because then I can look at it after a little while and I can see if it's like somehow loosened itself while I'm driving it. So I'm just gonna make a little mark right here. I know where I'm lined up. That side. And I'm gonna do the same thing on the other side. Doesn't line up with anything else. Alright, so I got my paint mark there. So that now when I'm tightening up these nuts, if I accidentally crank on it and it turns it, I'll know. That doesn't look like it moved at all. I'll still need to torque that down to spec, but that gives me a really good starting point. Again, I got this on the lowest setting, so even though it sounds like I might be hammering the crap out of it, I'm not. Alright, these were 30, so I'm going to get my torque wrench and see where we're at. There we go. Now as you're tightening this, the whole bar might move because these tie rods, since it's a ball in the socket, the whole thing can twist up and down. That's fine. We'll want to get it in the center eventually, but what you're looking for is to make sure that these threads don't move on the tie rod ends so that they're not going in and out. If the entire thing twists on the tie rod ends themselves, that's not anything you really need to worry about because we'll fix that in just a second. Alright, now that I got these tightened down, I'm going to check my alignment one more time and make sure I'm still at where I want it to be. Hopefully one more time. Six and 14/16. 6 and 15/16. Perfect. Well, at least where I wanted it to be, what I was shooting for. We'll still see how it feels when I drive it, and we'll see how that works. But before I put it together, I'm gonna turn the wheels back and forth and see how my steering stabilizer clearance is there. All right, looks pretty good. I'm trying to get this as parallel to this as possible. Maybe a little bit of slight downward, but oop, not that much. Anyway, I want to kind of hide it behind the bar because I don't know if you can see. There's a. There we go. There's a little dent right there from where I scraped it on a rock. Doesn't seem to be hurting it yet, but the previous one I had on here, I dented it really bad. It was a stock size one, which this one's a little bigger. But anyway, the previous one I had on here, I dented it really bad, and it seemed to not doing its job quite as well because every so often I got a shake that almost became death wobble. I haven't had that problem yet with this dent, so it's fine for now, but that's why I'm trying to get it up in the air because it was down way too low. Anyway, back to looking at this end of things. Trying to see, I'm going to turn the steering and see what I'm going to hit. Full lock to the driver's side. Looks fine. Now I'm going to come back and do full lock to the passenger side. Ooh, that is really close. Huh. Interesting. Right there. It is really close to the bottom of my sea gussets. So normally it would clear fine because this isn't here normally. This is some reinforcement that I put on. So I may need to rotate it down just slightly. Or, wonder if I can put that bolt in the other way so that the nut is on this side over here and the head's over here. Let me try that. See if that can be reversed. Alright, so let's see. I think I should be able to just flip this around. And then this simply goes through here. That give me a little more clearance. Just needed some persuasion. So if you watched another video I had a while back about replacing the bolt on the track bar, I did that because it's a tapered bolt, meaning it has a wider spot out on the front, or not on the front, a wider spot out on the top, and then it tapered down to be smaller. And I was just chuckling because look at this one's like that too. I don't know why they make them like this. It's a little wider there and then it tapers down. It's very strange. So there's a little pinch spot on this bar on the tie rod to keep this collar from sliding back and forth. And you probably can't see it, but it tapers in just a little bit on each side there. So when you loosen this up, just make sure you don't loosen it up so far that it can slide over those tapers, because you want it to stay in that spot because that keeps it from moving. So I'm thinking right about there. That's where I want it. Alright, and now I'm going to check clearance again on the steering. Oh, look at that. Speaking of clearance, I seem to have wedged against my jack stand. Come on. Oh, jeez, now it's wedged against that. Ouch, there we go. So, since this is off the ground, I can actually push the steering back and forth too. I'm just pushing on it with my hand. That looks good. That ain't gonna hit there. Nothing hitting here. Yeah, I like that. Pull it back the other way. Which isn't super easy because I'm compressing that thing out. That looks good. I can't tell if that's actually a full lock or not, but I'm sure it's good. It's not going to hit anything. Alright, so now I'm just going to torque everything to spec. This one's 30 as well. The one at the frame, however, is like 60, I think. 65 for the damper at the frame, at the axle side. This one is 65. Which doesn't feel like a lot on a big wrench. Yeah. One more thing while I'm here. So the first time I tried to take this off, I tried to crank it and take this nut off. That nut is actually tack welded onto this bracket, so it's not going to come off. So on this one, if you take that out, you got to take this the bolt side out, and that'll come out. The nut stays. It's welded on there. All right, I think all that's left is to put some grease in the new tie rod end, and then put the tires back on.